For years, retail has felt, well, kind of chaotic, right? But what if the solution wasn't some flashy new app, but a proven methodology from a completely different industry? In this explainer, we're going to break down how the discipline of manufacturing can actually solve retail's biggest, most painful problems. Okay, look at this number, $1.1 trillion. That's the staggering value of excess inventory just sitting in the US retail system right now. This isn't just a financial drain, folks. It's a massive flashing red light that the core processes, how we buy things, move things, and sell things, are fundamentally broken. So, the big question is, where is all this chaos coming from? It's really tempting to point a finger at just one thing, blame the internet or the economy, but the truth, it's a systemic breakdown. It's like a perfect storm of pressures hitting the industry all at once. So first, let's pull back the curtain on what we're calling retail's unseen crisis. There's this set of huge pressures squeezing retailers from every single angle, and it's making it harder than ever to even survive, let alone thrive. I mean, think about it. You've got the Amazon effect setting these incredibly high expectations for customers. That leads directly to severe margin compression. Then you throw in the sheer complexity of trying to sell everywhere at once, a supply chain that's more volatile than ever, and a historic labor crisis, and you've got a seriously brutal environment. And all these pressures, they don't just exist on a spreadsheet. They show up as really painful symptoms in the day-to-day operations. So let's look at the evidence from the field. This chart tells a powerful story. On the one hand, gross margins are down, a lot, and on the other, a massive chunk of all sales, sometimes over half, now comes from promotions. It's that classic race to the bottom, where retailers are forced to discount just to move product, and it absolutely destroys their profitability. And here's the crazy part. Even with all that extra inventory we talked about, retailers are still facing an 8 to 12% stockout rate. Now think about that. That means nearly 1 out of every 10 times a customer is standing there, ready to buy, the product is not on the shelf, even though it's probably sitting in a back room or a warehouse somewhere else in the network. That's a direct, unforced error. And this chart really highlights the instability right at the store level. You've got massive annual turnover, which means you're in a constant state of inexperience. Corporate programs and promotions, they're often executed poorly. And then there's shrink. That's lost from theft, error, and damage, and it just eats away at a huge portion of sales. So what's the result of all this internal chaos? Well, it's a massive gap in customer satisfaction. We're looking at Net Promoter Score here, which measures customer loyalty. Legacy retailers are scoring way down in the 20s to 40s, while their digital native competitors are soaring up in the 60s and 80s. Customers can feel that operational friction, and believe me, they are voting with their wallets. Okay, so that's the problem. It is deep and it is systemic. But what's the solution? Well, it actually comes from a playbook that was mastered decades ago by the manufacturing industry. You see, the fundamental problem is this. For way too long, retail has just seen operations as a cost to be minimized. The back room, the supply chain, doing inventory counts, it's all seen as low-status work. But here's the truth. In today's world, operations is the competitive weapon. And the answer is something called Integrated Process Excellence, or IPE for short. It's really all about applying that same rigorous, data-driven, disciplined approach that factories use to build cars to how a retailer stocks a shelf or fulfills an online order. It is the antidote to all that chaos. Now, this requires a huge mindset shift. Instead of operations being a cost center, it becomes your key advantage. Instead of silo channels, you get a single, unified process. And you finally stop reactively firefighting every single day, and you start proactively controlling your business. So what does this actually look like in practice? Let's walk through how IPE can transform a totally broken process into a well-oiled machine. Let's take a super common task, shipping an online order from a retail store. Before IEP, it's just pure chaos. The order just sits there in a queue. An associate eventually goes to look for it, but they often can't find it because of phantom inventory. The system says it's there, but it's not. There are no standard boxes, so they just improvise. And the result? A huge percentage of orders miss the truck, creating delays and really unhappy customers. Okay, now look at the IPA process for that same task. Orders are smartly routed only to stores with near-perfect inventory accuracy. A dedicated associate picks multiple orders super efficiently at a standardized station. The result? Over 95% of orders are out the door the very same day. It's predictable, it's reliable, and it's incredibly efficient. And what does all this actually achieve in the real world? Well, the results are, they're just staggering. I mean, look at these numbers. In-stock rates jump to nearly perfect. Customer satisfaction skyrockets, with NPS scores jumping 20 to 35 points. An e-commerce channel that was losing money suddenly becomes profitable. Inventory turns way faster, and order accuracy becomes virtually flawless. And hey, we're not talking about small gains here. The benefit to cost ratio for these programs can be as high as 25 to 1. That is one of the highest return investments a retailer can possibly make, with a payback in just months, not years. Which brings us to probably the most important takeaway of all. This isn't just about fixing problems. It's really about forging your new weapon for a sustainable advantage in the market. With integrated process excellence, your operation stops being a hidden liability and it becomes the engine that actually propels you forward. It becomes your most powerful and sustainable competitive advantage, one that is incredibly difficult for your competitors to copy. In the end, it really just comes down to this. Having great merchandise and clever marketing, that's just table stakes these days. Everybody has them. What truly separates the winners from the losers is the ability to execute consistently and flawlessly every single day. So we'll leave you with this one final question to think about. Right now, is your operation a hidden liability, one that's creating friction and disappointing your customers? Or is it your ultimate, untapped advantage, just waiting for the discipline to be unleashed?